Have you ever wondered what dinosaurs would look like if they were alive today? Well, they might look something like this. Yes, chickens are believed to be modern relatives of dinosaurs, specifically the mighty T-Rex. Crazy, right? But how do we know this? Scientists have discovered fossil evidence showing that many dinosaurs had feathers just like birds today. By studying their bones, genetics, and evolutionary history, we can trace their lineage. So how do we piece together these fascinating puzzles of ancestry? Welcome to today's lesson on phylogenetic trees and cladograms, where we'll learn the evolutionary history of life on Earth. But first, let's define what a cladogram is. Imagine a giant family tree, but instead of tracing your great-grandparents, we're tracing species. It's simply a branching diagram used to show evolutionary relationships among organisms. Instead of looking at just anatomical or genetic similarities, we are focusing on evolutionary relationships. Here's what cladograms look like. These diagrams help us see the defining characteristics that separate an organism from its ancestors. If we take a look at these two diagrams, we'll see that they are actually the same cladogram but represented in different ways. Organisms A and B are the most closely related because if we trace back their branches, you'll find their most recent common ancestor right here. Meanwhile, A and C share a common ancestor further back in time, meaning A and B are more closely related to each other than A is to C. Cladograms are like evolutionary roadmaps. Each branch tells a story of adaptation, survival, and change. Each branch corresponds to a key adaptation that separates one group from another. The closer the branches, the more closely related the species are. Simple, right? Now let's take a look at this cladogram. If we compare a lancelet and a leopard, their common ancestor is way back here, meaning they are very distantly related. What separates them? The leopard has a vertebral column, jaws, 4 walking legs, an amniotic egg, and hair, while the lancelet does not. The further back the common ancestor, the more characteristics will differ between the two species. On the other hand, if we compare a leopard and a turtle, their most recent common ancestor is right here. The only key difference between them in this cladogram is the presence of hair, which means they are more closely related than a leopard is to a lancelet. Think of a cladogram like an evolutionary version of a detective board. Instead of identifying suspects, we're tracing evolutionary features that separate one species from another. The fewer the branches between two species, the more closely related they are. Now let's put our detective hats on and analyze a cladogram. Take a look at this one. What characteristics separates hagfish and perch from all the other organisms? If we look here, the defining characteristic is the lungs. Everything to the right of this line has lungs, including salamanders, lizards, pigeons, mice, and chimpanzees. However, the hagfish and perch are to the left, meaning they do not have lungs. Now, what common characteristics do mice and chimpanzees share? If we trace back their branches, we see they both have fur and mammary glands, claws and nails, lungs and jaws. Notice that feathers are not included. Feathers are a unique characteristic of the pigeon, which is on the separate evolutionary line. Here's where phylogenetic trees come in handy. Unlike cladograms, which focus on hypothetical relationships based on shared traits, phylogenetic trees incorporate molecular data like DNA sequences to establish evolutionary connections with greater accuracy. Phylogenetic trees not only show relationships, but also depict evolutionary time and genetic changes. This makes them a powerful tool in understanding how species have evolved over billions of years. So how do phylogenetic trees work? Scientists gather genetic, anatomical, and fossil data, then use computational methods to compare similarities and differences. The more genetic similarities two species share, the closer they are on the tree. Evolutionary time is often represented along the branches, giving us insights into when species diverge from a common ancestor. Each branch represents an evolutionary pathway, with nodes indicating common ancestors. A polytomy, where multiple branches emerge, shows uncertainty in evolutionary relationships. Outgroups also help serve as a reference for determining how all the species evolve. So, while cladograms are great for simple trait-based comparison, Phylogenetic trees give us a deeper, more scientifically backed look at the evolutionary lineage of organisms. But that's for later. In the meantime, appreciate the connections that shape life as we know it. Every species carries a story written in its DNA waiting to be explored. So keep analyzing and question it. The more you learn about evolutionary relationships, the more you'll uncover about past history. And who knows, maybe one day you'll have a discovery that rewrites what we thought we knew. Until then, see you next time!